Hi, I'm Pablo Yañez. I'm a program manager here at STLI, and I focus on a couple of different areas. Technology. I tend to work with faculty in the STEM fields, but I enjoy working with all William and Mary faculty because they're all awesome.
And I'm Diana Theisinger. I am a program manager here at STLI. I focus on online course development and design and our micro learning platform.
This is the Steely Weekly Roundup. I'm Roy, and this is
Chris.
and we're gonna each week talk about the highlights of a previous week with Steely. So last week we had an awesome two events. Tell us about these events.
In case you missed it,
In case you missed it, which why would have anybody missed it? We had the inaugural Fall 2022 Teaching and Learning Talk, or TLT as we like to call them. And this week we were focusing on experiential learning. We had a great panel of three faculty members. Shannon White, who is the former director of the Center for Geospatial Analysis. We had Paulina Corion, who is in modern languages, and Chuck Bailey from the geology department. And we talked about their experiences with experiential learning. All three of them had an amazing repertoire of offering their students experiential learning opportunities that they discussed. What do you think, Diana?
Well, Diana, what was your event?
oh, okay. So my event was a complement to Pablo's flagship teaching and learning talk, which was a hands-on workshop. So our in our retreats this summer, the program managers at Steely really talked about the need to not only hit the theory of teaching and learning, but also give our faculty and staff opportunities to put the theory into practice and have these hands-on experiences, which is kind of meta when you think about it, because we talked about how important. What's your famous quote from the talk? In theory,
Oh,
practice is the same.
in theory, practice and theory are the same, and in practice, they are not.
Right. So we wanted to give faculty and
Could you
staff.
say that again?
In theory, theory and practice are the same. In practice, they are not.
Bumper sticker coming soon.
So we wanted to give faculty and staff an opportunity to get some hands-on practice with experiential learning and actually apply that to their syllabus, their course design, and planning. And so that's what we did with the workshop on Friday. We hit some of the highlights from Tuesday's TLT, and then we just had some open discussion. We provided some specific examples of small ways that faculty can introduce experiential learning opportunities without leaving the classroom, and then kind of went around and had a discussion about for the people who actually attended the workshop to get some ideas to use in their classes.
And I think that this pair of events was really good because in the past we've been very good at offering the teaching and learning talks, which are kind of what we like to do with those is attract as wide an audience as possible with something that is as applicable to as many courses as possible. But in the past, we haven't really carried through with the second part of that, which is, okay, now that you're interested, come and get started on actually applying this. So Diana's workshop was fantastic because it took the folks who came to that session and walked them through getting started with applying these practices in their courses.
So, for those who are listening and may not be aware, can you give a brief explanation as to what exactly experiential learning is?
So experiential learning, we started the teaching learning talk with sort of a brief working definition. And some people disagree about this a little bit. But experiential learning is basically learning by doing. And it's a really critical aspect of learning. We discussed a little bit about some of the theory behind experiential learning, which is kind of interesting to me because we discussed a fellow named David Kolb, who has developed this theory called, or what would you call it? It's
A framework?
A framework.
Yeah.
A framework. A learning framework called the Kolb cycle. And a very important point that he makes about this cycle is that this is how we learn in the real world all the time. This is how we learn how to walk. This is how we learn how to speak. So it is a theoretical framework, but it's actually something that we subconsciously do all the time. And within experiential learning in higher education, one of the things that has been found to be very powerful is to apply the same cycle that we do subconsciously, but make you sort of conscious of it and reinforce it. So that includes things like,
So active practice.
Right, active practice, and then reflection is the second step. So that is, you do, then you reflect on what you've done, and then you sort of create a general model of what has happened. And then the third step is you might experiment with that model. And then you rinse or repeat.
I think it's pretty neat. You're bringing a conscious thought to a subconscious action in a way with that type of learning. Diana, so during your workshop, there was 3 key points you really pushed. Do you mind going over those?
Sure. So we gave 3 ways, 3 general ideas for professors to get started with experiential learning. We said without leaving the classroom. Some of them do give the option for students to leave the classroom and get out in the field, but you don't have to design a big, semester-long internship for any of these. So the first idea is to connect with the community, to give students the opportunity to talk to someone in the community, go out and read a book in a classroom or visit a clinic or maybe an archaeological dig, since we have some of those happening in our backyard here in Williamsburg. The second idea was for them to practice makes progress is the little tagline we used, but for students to have the opportunity to do like a mock interview or a case study or make some kind of video product that applies skills that you would like them to learn in your class or skills that they might foreseeably use in their career in the future if they stay on the track that is covered by the content in your class. And then the third way is to amplify student voices. Anytime we give students the choice to express their learning or demonstrate what they've learned in a variety of modes, that can lead to or support experiential learning, because it encourages them to step outside the box of an essay or some of the more traditional forms of learning assessment, and to try something new, like making a podcast, for example.
Well, there are actually a variety of reasons that we sort of focused in on this topic. Experiential learning, one reason is it is part of William & Mary's, it's a stated goal within William & Mary's 2026 goals. It is also, I think, within our group, we agree that this is one of the key components that is sometimes missing in courses. You can do a lot of book learning, but as I mentioned in that quote, that's coming to a bumper sticker, it is really critical to put your learning into practice. That is, as far as retention, as far as understanding, it's critical. It also, I think, is something that is critical within the liberal arts education, which is to get a feel for what it is that you are studying and what it's going to look like when you graduate, when it's put into practice. And that's something that all of the panelists really echoed back, that students can have these be very transformative, affirmative events where it is backing what they have chosen to study. It is reinforcing that. But it can also be a moment of reflection and redirection, so where you can adjust where your career is heading, your life is heading.
So what other events are coming up with STLI? Do you have any other TLTs or workshops?
I'm so glad you asked. Okay, so we have a couple things going on. We have some 30-minute brown bag lunch kind of Zoom open house.
Open house,
yeah.
kind of, yeah.
So I think our first one is going to focus on using Poll EV to increase student engagement. Really helpful if you have a big class and you have lots of students. We have 2 more teaching and learning talks coming up that are part of this kind of pattern of teaching and learning talk followed by hands-on workshop.
So let's back up a second. For this year's offerings, programming
Yes.
from the studio, we have decided to, instead of just doing a little here and a little there, we have been building a more focused approach where the first half of the semester we are focusing on
student engagement,
and part of that is experiential learning. And then why don't you tell them what we have for the fall?
Sure.
Later in the fall, sorry.
Later in the fall, we're going to look at course design and organization. So for faculty members who are teaching, traditional in-person courses, we'll look at ways to make your Blackboard site a good place for students to get resources quickly and efficiently so that it can support what you're doing in class. And then for anyone who is teaching hybrid or blended or what are the words I'm looking for, fully online course, we'll look at ways that you can make that course site really easy for students to navigate independently. And I don't know, we'll probably explore some different elements that go along with course organization.
Yes.
During that.
Yes. So look for these announcements. Stay tuned.
Yes.
Where do we look? Where do we look for these announcements?
I think you would look at the STLI webpage. We will be. We have a new communications person on staff who will be doing an awesome job.
His name is Chris.
That's me.
He's right here.
That's Chris.
That's me.
He's in the
that
room
guy.
with us.
And again, we are not. It's not a one of. We are going to package this with resources. We are going to have little 30-minute events that we do live on Zoom where people can pop in and ask questions. And we will have both sort of a get acquainted with a subject, which is going to be the TLT, the teaching and learning talk, and then we will follow that up with workshops where you can put that into actual practice. And then in the spring, we will have an additional one which will focus around assessment.
Yeah.
So
great.
Stay tuned for those dates.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
All right.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys checking and giving us an update. We look forward to hearing more exciting news about some upcoming events. Thank you.